In today's video, we're going over the diagnosis of hip osteoarthritis. All right, so there are a lot of different types of hip pain. It's very important as clinicians we get an accurate diagnosis that's going to influence our treatment and our plan of care. So in today's video, we're going to show you how to get an accurate diagnosis for hip osteoarthritis. So what populations is hip arthritis most common in? Well, for one, you're going to see more hip OA in women versus men. Also, it's much more common as we age. It's very unlikely to have hip osteoarthritis under the age of 30, but over the age of 75, about 1/3 of folks are going to have symptomatic osteoarthritis. There is a mechanical risk, and essentially that just means if you did manual labor for the majority of your life, increase your risk of hip osteoarthritis. If your patient has a history of playing elite sports, that also increases the risk of hip osteoarthritis. If your patient has obesity, it increases the likelihood of having hip osteoarthritis. What's going on, guys? My name is Dan Pope from Fitness Pain Free. I'm a physical therapist and a strength coach. We've helped make thousands of incredible coaches and clinicians with online courses, communities, and mentoring programs. The goal of today's video is to make you 1% better. All right, so what is the clinical presentation for folks who have hip osteoarthritis? Generally, they're going to have pain in the anterior and medial portion of the hip, although in some folks, it may feel more posterior hip pain. Pain is usually worse in the morning or after a period of sitting for a prolonged period of time, and usually warms up in about 30 minutes or so. Certain activities can be provocative, like squatting, and generally speaking, those activities can aggravate the hip, and then rest feels better afterwards. These folks may also present with an antalgic gait, or basically just a limp. So the big one you might see, let's say my painful side is the left side, is an abduction lurch. So when they weight bear on that painful side, often lurch towards that side just like so, which tends to reduce some of that pain, reduces the work for some of the muscles around the hip. The other thing you might see is limited hip extension or painful hip extension. And because of that, let's say now that I have my hip arthritis on my right side, when I take a stride with my left, I might take a short stride because it doesn't feel good to extend this hip. The other thing you might see is someone will flex the hip on the painful side as their leg travels behind them. So it looks a little bit like this, all right? So one more time, you take a step, lean forward, just like so. Hey there, you. Sorry to interrupt, but I have something really cool, and I think you need to know about it. It is an evidence-based cheat sheet for hip osteoarthritis. And my promise to you is I'm gonna catch you up to date on the latest research about hip osteoarthritis in under 10 minutes. Staying up to date on these pathologies can be a pain, but it doesn't have to be because I have this little cheat sheet for you. Best of all, this thing is 100% free. I will leave a link in the description. Download it now, get to learning, and now, back to your video. So one of the hallmark signs of hip osteoarthritis is going to be stiffness within the hip. And one of the biggest ones is going to be stiffness into hip internal rotation. So essentially, we take arthritic Brian over here, we'll flex his hip, and I'm going to check his internal rotation range of motion. So if he has less than 24 degrees of hip internal rotation, increases the likelihood that he has hip osteoarthritis. The other thing we want to do is check left side and right side. And if there's a greater than 15-degree difference from left to right, again, increases the likelihood of hip OA. Next are some clinical signs and special tests taken from a paper in JAMA. The first of which is having your patient go ahead and perform a squat, come right back up again. And if they have posterior hip pain specifically, increase the likelihood of hip OA. Groin pain with passive abduction or passive adduction. Next one's going to be weakness in hip abduction, arthritic Brian's on his side, legs straight, coming up to level with the hip. Go ahead and press up into the ceiling. Good, and then relax. The next is going to be reduced passive hip adduction going across the body. And if you enjoy videos like this, I recommend hitting that like button, subscribe to the channel, helps me out tremendously. And the last one, like we already mentioned, is going to reduce hip internal rotation range of motion. Next, let's go over some differential diagnosis. The first one to be on the lookout for is going to be FAI. Now, like we were talking about before, if you're over the age of 30, right, it's a little more likely you're gonna have hip osteoarthritis. If you're under the age of 30, much less likely, right? So if you have a young patient having hip pain, presents like hip OA, probably more labral pathology. The second piece is if folks that have FAI typically don't complain of as much stiffness of the hip. So if they are limited, it's usually going to be hip flexion and internal rotation. And the big difference is that you usually get an empty end feel with these folks. So when you go to end range and you try to go into flexion and internal rotation, it's usually just painful, although they probably have some more range of motion. Where if you're doing this to someone that has hip OA, usually it feels stiff. You can feel a stiff end feel. The next one to be on the lookout for is going to be gluteal tendinopathy. So the big difference between hip OA and gluteal tendinopathy is gluteal tendinopathy is going to be lateral hip pain that sometimes extends down the hip, right? The other giveaways is usually tenderness to palpation to the greater trochanter. And the other piece is that usually there's pain with resistant hip abduction. Yep. The other thing you'll see is if you perform range of motion testing, usually you have normal range of motion in folks that have tendinopathy. Next, we want to be on the lookout for lumbar spine pathology. A couple easy things you can do. So the first of which is have your patient feet together. Go ahead and touch your toes. Good. All the way back up again. Let's back bend as far as you're able to. Yep. And from here, laterally flex. Try to touch your heel to the side and go the other way. Good. And lastly, we'll try some rotation. So if this is bringing on your patient's normal low back and hip pain, we start to think maybe this is more related to the spine and not necessarily the hip. And if you do think your patient has radicular low back pain, it's pretty easy just to perform a slump test. So Brian, go ahead and put your hands behind your back here. Yep. And go ahead and kick out this side leg straight. Give me some dorsiflexion. And then from here, go ahead and curl down a little bit for me. Does this bring on your normal symptoms? Okay. I don't think it's radicular pain. So we want to be on the lookout for inflammatory arthropathies, so things like rheumatic arthritis or psoriatic arthritis. Now what's interesting about these pathologies is they tend to feel worse with rest. So with hip osteoarthritis, when you do activity, it tends to aggravate it. Then when you rest, it feels better. For these inflammatory arthropathies, it's the opposite. So if you're noticing this in your patients, you probably want to refer out to a specialist. All right, so now you know how to diagnose hip osteoarthritis. What if you have a young patient comes through the door with that anterior medial hip pain? You probably want to know how to also diagnose femoral acetabular impingement syndrome. I have a video for you. I'll leave a link in the corner. Go ahead and click on that, and I'll see you there.